The Brain in Love by Helen Fisher. In the jungles of Guatemala, in Tikal, stands a temple. It was built by the grandest sun king of the grandest civilization of the Americas, the Mayas. His name was Jasa Chancawayil. He lived into his 80s, and Mayan inscriptions show that he loved his wife very much. So he built a temple in her honor, facing his. And every spring and autumn, exactly at the equinox, the sun rises behind his temple and perfectly bathes hers with his shadow. And as the sun sets in the evening, her shadow perfectly bathes his. 1,300 years later, these two lovers still kiss and touch in their tombs. Around the world, people love. They sing for love, they dance for love, they compose stories and poems about love, they tell myths and legends about love. They pine for love, they live for love, they kill for love, and they die for love. Anthropologists have found evidence of romantic love in 170 societies. They have never found one that did not have it. But love isn't always a blissful experience. One study done with college students asked a lot of questions about love, and the two that stood out to me were, have you ever been rejected by someone who you really loved? And the second was, have you ever dumped someone who really loved you? And almost 95% of both men and women said yes to both. Almost no one gets out of love alive. Before I start telling you about the brain, I'd like to recite to you what I think is the most powerful love poem on earth. It was told by an anonymous Kwaikutl Indian to a Southern Alaska missionary in 1896. Fire runs through my body with the pain of my love for you. Pain runs through my body with the fires of my love for you. Pain like a boil about to burst with my love for you. Pain and more pain. Where are you going with my love? I am told you will go from here. I am told you will leave me here. My body is numb with grief. Remember what I said, my love. Goodbye, my love, goodbye. Emily Dickinson once wrote, parting is all we need to know of hell. Romantic love is one of the most powerful sensations on earth. Several years ago, we decided to look into the brain and study this madness. We found activity in a tiny little factory near the base of the brain called the ventral tegmental area. This part of the brain is associated with wanting, motivation, with craving, and with focus. In fact, the same brain region becomes active when you feel the rush of cocaine. But love is much more than a cocaine high. At least you come down from cocaine. Romantic love is an obsession. It possesses you. You lose your sense of self. You can't stop thinking about another human being. Someone is camping in your head. Wild is love, and it can become more intense when you don't get what you want. Right now, neuroscientists are looking at the data of the people who were put into a machine after they had been dumped. It was very difficult putting these people in the machine because they were in such bad shape. We found activity in 3 brain regions. We found activity in the same brain region associated with intense romantic love. When you've been dumped, the one thing you love to do is to just forget about the person. But no, you just love them harder. Terence the Roman poet once said, the less my hope, the hotter my love. And indeed we now know why. 2,000 years later, we can explain this in the brain. That brain system, the reward system associated with wanting, with craving, with motivation, and with focus, can become more active when you don't get what you want. In this case, life's greatest prize, an appropriate mating partner. We found activity in other brain regions also, in a brain region associated with calculating your gains and losses. You're lying in this machine, you're looking at the picture, and you're wondering what all went wrong. What have I lost? And indeed, it is this brain region that is becoming active when you are measuring your gains and losses. It's also the same brain region that becomes active when you're willing to take enormous risks. Lastly, we found activity in a brain region associated with deep attachment to another individual. No wonder people suffer around the world and we have so many crimes of passion. When you've been rejected in love, not only are you engulfed with feelings of romantic love, but you're feeling deep attachment to this individual. Moreover, this brain circuit for reward is working. You feel intense energy, intense focus, intense motivation, and intense willingness to win life's greatest prize. So what have I learned from this experiment that I would like to share with the world? Foremost, I have come to think that romantic love is a drive, a basic mating drive. Romantic love enables you to focus your mating energy on just one at a time, conserve your mating energy, and start the mating process with a single individual. I think of all the poetry that I've read about romantic love, What sums it up best is something that was said by Plato over 2,000 years ago. He said, "The God of love lives in a state of need. It is a need. It is an urge. It is a homeostatic imbalance. Like hunger and thirst, it is almost impossible to stamp out." I've also come to believe that romantic love is an addiction, a perfectly wonderful addiction when it's going well, and a perfectly horrible addiction when it's going poorly. And indeed, it has all the characteristics of addiction. You focus on the person. You obsessively think about them. You crave them. You distort reality, and you subconsciously increase willingness to take enormous risks to win this person. And it's got the three main characteristics of addiction. Tolerance, you need to see them more and more and more. Withdrawals, and lastly, relapse. So one thing I would like the medical community and the legal community and even the college community to try to understand is that, indeed, romantic love is one of the most addictive substances on earth. I would also like to tell the world that animals love. There's no animal on this planet that will copulate with anything that comes along. Too old, too young, too scruffy, too stupid, and they won't do it. Unless you're stuck in a laboratory cage, and if you spend your entire life in a little box, you're not going to be very picky with who you have sex with. But I've looked in 100 species, and everywhere in the wild, animals have favorites. People have often asked me if what I've learned about love has spoiled it for me, and I simply say hardly. You can know every ingredient about a piece of chocolate cake, sit down and eat that cake, and still feel the same joy. And certainly I have made all the same mistakes as everyone else does. But it's really deepened my compassion and understanding for all human life. There are still many questions to be answered and asked about romantic love. The question that I'm working on right now is, why do you fall in love with one person rather than another? I know what happens in the brain when you do fall in love, but I don't know why you fall in love with one person rather than another. And so I've spent the last several years on this. And there are many reasons that you fall in love with one person rather than another that psychologists can tell you. We tend to fall in love with somebody from the same socioeconomic background, the same general level of intelligence, the same level of good looks, the same religious background. Your childhood certainly plays a role, but nobody knows how. And that's it. That's all they know. No, they've never found how two personalities fit to make a good relationship. So it began to occur to me that maybe biology pulls you toward one person rather than another. At some point, there will always be magic to love. But I think I will come closer to understanding why it is that you can walk into a room and everyone's from your same socioeconomic background, same level of good looks, same level of intelligence, and you don't feel drawn toward all of them. I think there's biology to that. I think we're going to end up in the next few years to discover all kinds of brain mechanisms that pulls us toward one person rather than another. So I will close with this. Faulkner said, "The past is not dead. It's not even past. Indeed, we carry a lot of luggage from our yesteryear, but we understand that love is in us. It's deeply embedded in our brain. Our challenge is to understand each other." Thank you.